to give credit where credit's due. Brad is the CEO. I'm the COO, but thanks for everybody. Let's see, clicker. Here we go. Okay, so just a heads up. I'm going to be pretty ruthless in our analysis of legacy MDMs to support XR. So if there are any IT admins out here, just a trigger warning in case you love your existing solution. But all jokes aside, this is something that we've got real-world experience with. We've been in this space for nearly 6 years. We're venture-backed. We have the largest team in the world dedicated to building an MDM for XR devices. We're supporting some of the largest deployments in the world today, including Axon, that has thousands of devices across hundreds of locations. HP is reselling our platform. They call it Extend XR. We're Qualcomm's preferred XR MDM, and we're working in collaboration with them to build better support for all XR devices. Over 50% of our customers have over 1,000 employees, and nearly 15% have over 10,000. We've had thousands of conversations with companies, and we understand why companies and their IT departments initially push so hard to use their legacy MDM. We really do. I just want to make sure companies and their IT departments understand what they're getting into if they choose to use their legacy MDM to also support XR devices. It may seem like the path of least resistance up front, but it just leads to a whole lot more problems in the long run. So let's take a look at Client X. This is a real customer that we worked with. I've removed their name and identifying info per their request. They had nearly 4,000 devices deployed across over 30 locations, and they chose to use their legacy MDM to support this initiative. This company works in the medical field, and they were building VR programs to support both the patients and the medical providers to use together. And so they made a huge investment purchasing hardware, enrolling their legacy MDM to support the initiative. And it wasn't until after they had shipped their devices to these locations that they ran into a whole bunch of issues. So I'm going to break these down for us. And we can really break it down into 3 main categories. First is application support. Second is the user experience. And third is managing the in-headset experience. So let's break down problem 1, application support. So first, limited support for large file sizes. So typically when you're deploying apps and files to smartphones and tablets, it's at most double-digit megabyte files. But VR content is way different. The file sizes are much, much larger. And legacy MDMs really just don't have a use case to support sending files as large as VR files are, which are anywhere between the range of hundreds of megs to even gigabytes in size. And so they don't have the infrastructure to support it. So the result is that you often get issues and errors when trying to deploy VR content through a legacy MDM. ArborXR was built with large file sizes in mind. And we have customers successfully deploying apps as large as 10 gigabytes plus without any issues. All right, so next, version management. So the need for content creators and enterprises to work together to quickly push updates to applications or roll back to specific versions is one of the most common use cases we see in XR today. So for example, let's say you need to push an application to a small batch of devices, but the rest need to remain on a stable build. The ability to quickly manage these updates, roll back to specific versions, doesn't exist with legacy MDMs. With ArborXR, you can pin devices on specific builds, roll back to specific versions, or auto-select devices to install the latest update when those become available. No content sharing. So many of our enterprise customers work with third-party studios to build and source their training content. And there's no way for these customers to securely and remotely receive access to these applications. And with how often apps are being updated, the current process is really messy. So one, these studios are sending applications via Dropbox or some other similar method The IT admin is receiving the application, loading it into the legacy MDM. But then, of course, the issue is because how often these apps need to be updated, you're just repeating this manual process every time this happens. And if I were to just take a quick step back and kind of explain, like, why is this an issue? This seems like pretty basic stuff. I don't understand why do legacy MDMs have such a problem doing these things. And it really boils down to this, and that is tablets and smartphones are what we call GMS, Google Mobile Services devices. And that comes with a number of enterprise-related APIs, but most importantly with application support. And with a lot of these issues that I'm going to describe today, it comes with the Google Play Store. Okay, so XR devices are not GMS devices. They're what we call AOSP devices, and they therefore do not come with the Google Play Store. So typically, legacy MDMs are just leveraging the Google Play Store to do a lot of this functionality that I'm talking about. So back to content sharing. With ArborXR, super easy for third-party studios and enterprises to work together for these enterprises to remotely receive access securely from these third-party studios. They can work collaboratively to push updates, to roll back to specific versions as needed. No differential updating. So differential updating allows you to push a new build of your application, but only install the most recent changes to those devices. And so the result is that you're only often downloading a few megabytes as opposed to re-downloading the entire application, which again could be hundreds of megs or even gigs. With legacy MDMs, this feature doesn't seem to exist. Again, they're used to pushing small apps and files. With ArborXR, you can push differential updating, and so the result is that what might normally take hours and hours is only going to take you likely a few minutes. Limited visibility into app deployments. So with legacy MDMs, knowing which apps and files have been successfully deployed to devices doesn't really seem to be a priority. It's user policies, device security, that's kind of the name of the game for these platforms. Currently, the only way to verify, have my applications actually been installed or not, is put on the headset and find it in the device itself. But again, with how large VR apps are, with how often they need to be updated, total visibility is key. And we've built ArborXR with this in mind. You can have total visibility of your entire deployment at the organization view, down to your device group view, and even at your individual device view. Okay, lastly on app support, no visibility into application usage. So at the end of the day, we're all trying to prove the efficacy of XR. XR helps us reduce cost. It helps us train our end users much faster, more efficiently than traditional learning mediums. You absolutely need the ability to view how often apps are being used, how many sessions have there been, what's the average session duration, which applications are most popular. And these kinds of insights are definitely not something that's available with a legacy MDM today. With ArborXR, you can view all of this data with our session analytics and export this data into your own data visualization tool as well. Okay, problem 2, the user experience. It's kind of 2 bullets in here. First, it's a non-intuitive web console. So often, to even become a certified user of a legacy MDM, you have to go through a bunch of training and then come out the other side of that with a certificate saying you are now smart enough to use this platform. One of our customers had this to say about using a legacy MDM to support XR. And one of the core issues here is that most of the functionality is built for tablets and smartphones. And unfortunately, a lot of that functionality is either not relevant or doesn't work at all to support XR devices. But there's absolutely no indication of these discrepancies, so you're just kind of left guessing what might work to support my XR devices. ArborXR was built solely for the XR use case. Most of our customers fully go through onboarding and fully provision their devices with security, settings, Wi-Fi, apps, etc., all without any guidance from our support team in just a matter of a few minutes. Initial device enrollment is quite a pain. So there's a 4-step process typically to enroll a legacy MDM into a device. So step 1, download the APK, the application, to your computer. Step 2, run a manual ADB command to install that application on your device. Oh, I forgot to mention, plug in the device into your computer. Third, run another ADB command to set that application as the device owner application app. And then fourth, put on the headset, log in with your username and password using a virtual keyboard, and you have to do this on every single device. The fact that one of our customers did this with nearly 4,000 devices still just kind of blows my mind. ArborXR was built differently. We have a very simple flow, a tool where you can plug in one or multiple devices at the same time, click install, and you're done. At that point, you can fully manage your devices. But we're definitely not stopping there. In partnership with Qualcomm, we will soon be enabling zero-touch enrollment on a number of XR devices in the near future. Okay, problem number 3, the in-headset experience. So again, just a couple bullets in here. First, no NVR single sign-on. So legacy MDMs built for tablets and smartphones. In order to build NVR single sign-on, you have to do something in VR. So it's out of the scope of what legacy MDMs were built for. With ArborXR, we have built a super easy flow for you to authenticate. And what it does is it fully locks down access to devices until a user first authenticates. Once they authenticate, they then get access to the applications that the admin has set them to have access to. And then at that point, they can log in and out of whatever applications they want to without the need to re-authenticate every time. And then once the user takes off the device, it automatically logs them out and locks down the device again until the next user authenticates themselves. Okay, can't build your own NVR experience. So let's just assume you could do NVR single sign-on with a legacy MDM. How then at that point are we locking down access to what users can have access to in the headset? So locking down access to settings, apps, browsers, etc. Again, you have to build custom VR functionality to accomplish this. It's out of the scope of what tablets and smartphones were built for. With ArborXR, you can fully customize your own VR experience and lock down access to settings, apps, files, browsers, whatever you may need. And in addition to this, you can even customize the look and feel of these environments. So you can have multiple different VR environments on your devices within one organization that might be tailored to one department better than another, as an example. Okay, so what's next? So XR really is the computing platform of the future. And to us, it's in its own category. And to bundle it in the same category as tablets and smartphones, to us, it's just not right. Every week, we're having new conversations with customers that are solving very unique challenges that are completely out of the scope of what a legacy MDM was built for. Here's some of the questions that we're seeing. So how can we track the learning outcomes? What about integrations into an LMS? What about screencasting, WebXR shortcuts? Can we remotely communicate with users during their training sessions? How can we see what they're seeing? This list goes on and on and on. And really, though, we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg on what it looks like to support XR devices at scale. So let's go back to Client X. These issues were so significant to them that they chose to spend tens of thousands of dollars to ship their devices back to their main location, factory reset them, install ArborXR, and then ship them back out to their locations. The costs to them were justified in order to have a truly successful XR deployment at scale for both end users and admins. And so my question to you is, are you willing to bet your unique XR strategy can be supported by an MDM built 15 years ago that was designed to manage smartphones and tablets? ArborXR has the largest team in the world dedicated to solving the unique challenges in deploying XR at scale. We're currently working with over 600 customers, anyone from content creators deploying a couple dozen headsets to the largest Fortune 100s deploying tens of thousands. One of the things that we have noticed is that typically, for the most part, companies deploying fewer than 50 devices are in a proof of concept or pilot stage. And in an effort to remove as much friction as possible, we've recently increased our free device limit to 50. So if you're thinking about making a jump into XR, if you want to see for yourself some of the differences between a legacy MDM and what ArborXR provides, please stop by our booth tomorrow. We'd love to have a conversation and get you set up with 50 free devices. And just as we transition to Q&A, I wanted to pull this screen up for you all if you wanted to have a quick snapshot of some of the core differences between ArborXR and a legacy MDM. So thank you.
Are there any questions for Jordan? Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.